on this edition of In the Life.
Our best stories from the past 3 seasons, including a battle over books in a Texas library and a growing gay movement in China.
We are gays, we are lesbians, we are bisexual people.
With special guest host Cherry Jones. All this and more on In the Life, America's gay and lesbian news magazine. In the Life is funded in part by the H. Van Ameringen Foundation. Additional support provided by Mel Heifetz, Jonathan B. Sheffer and Christopher Barley, the Gill Foundation, the Colin Higgins Foundation, the Mitchell Gold Company, in the hopes of eliminating all types of fear and prejudice, and the annual support of In the Life members like you.
Welcome to this special edition of In the Life, America's gay and lesbian television news magazine. I'm Cherry Jones. Although I work mostly in theater and films, I recognize the impact of television. So when In the Life asked me to present some of the stories that are representative of the best of this groundbreaking series, I welcomed the invitation. What In the Life has been doing for almost a decade is bringing us reports about gay men and lesbians, but the themes are universal, issues that we all can relate to. Stories about the meaning of family, the struggle for freedom, both individual and collective, the role of religion in our lives. These are just some of the topics In the Life and its team of reporters have explored over the years. On this special episode, series host Catherine Linton brings us stories from Texas, Iowa, and China. And Jonathan Capehart reports on the connection between Judy Garland's death and the Stonewall riots. But first, let's look at a story In the Life reported on in 1998 about a controversy that erupted in one town in Texas.
In Wichita Falls, tensions are running high over 2 children's books with gay themes. Heather Has Two Mommies and Daddy's Roommate are designed to teach children about alternative families. The minister of the First Baptist Church there has called the books blasphemous, and in order to keep them off the shelves, congregation members have borrowed them from the public library and refused to return them. Librarians, concerned citizens, and even some city officials want the books back, arguing that the issue is not about morality, but censorship.
A young girl and her mother came to the library. They discovered the books on the shelf in the children's picture book section. The mother felt that they were totally inappropriate in a children's setting. She took the books to the children's librarian and complained. She did take the books, she checked them out, and took them to her minister.
As I looked at these books, I was outraged as a parent and as a citizen, even more so than a pastor, to think that my tax dollars were being used to purchase this kind of literature.
On Mother's Day, Dr. Jeffress delivered a televised sermon linking the 2 books to the biblical story of Sodom and Gomorrah.
God's word is clear. Homosexuality is an abomination in the sight of God. I want you to listen to this book, available in our library now. Page 1. My mommy and daddy got a divorce last year. Now there's somebody new at daddy's house. Being gay is just one more kind of love. And here are Daddy and Frank hugging one another. Daddy and his roommate are very happy together, and I'm happy too. These are the 2 copies that were out on the shelves. They are now in my possession, and librarian, you're not getting them back.
The sermon sparked a major controversy in the usually sleepy town of Wichita Falls. Confronted by Dr. Jeffress, librarian Linda Hughes decided to stick up for the books.
The mission of the public library is to serve everyone in the public. It's not to serve the majority. It's not to serve just a particular faction.
To support her position, Linda Hughes contacted the American Library Association Office of Intellectual Freedom and discovered that the books had already ignited firestorms similar to the one in Wichita Falls.
The problem is, if you put gay men and children in the same viewfinder, somebody is going to get terribly upset.
People who react very strongly to Heather Has Two Mommies in a negative way, I think feel that if their child reads this book or reads Daddy's Roommate just once, they're going to grow up to be gay. What I always tell people is when I was a child, I was an avid reader. I read thousands of books about heterosexual people, and one of those books changed my sexuality.
The books have been recommended by psychologists, by doctors, by teachers, and by librarians. And they've won awards as best children's books. I definitely feel they have a place in the collection of Wichita Falls.
I've always appreciated librarians, but never quite so fully as when my book suddenly got into the news. They're truly the foot soldiers of the First Amendment, and they have really bent over backwards to make sure that the book is available to the public.
With the support of the City Council, the librarian decided that for a 90-day trial period, the book should stay in the children's section but be moved to a juvenile area with other books on sensitive topics. That decision made Dr. Jeffress even more determined to fight back.
If that librarian and that city council thinks we are going to bow down in gratitude and say, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you for taking these two books and moving them out from our younger children and moving them over to pollute the minds of our older children, they've got another thought coming.
As the controversy increased, city leaders denounced the attacks.
It divides our community, it divides our people. Whatever persuasion individuals are, they're still citizens of this city, and they still have rights. It's just like jumping on a group in our society that's not able to defend itself. And there are very few people who are going to come to the rescue of gays and lesbians without being splashed with the same paint.
This is the worst I have seen as far as this community is concerned. And it seems to be the issue of gays. We're going to ignore the gays. We're not going to give them any information whatsoever. We're not going to allow their children to have information about their lifestyle so that they can understand it. And that isn't fair.
The uproar has increased the visibility of some gays and lesbians in Wichita Falls, such as the outspoken pastor of the local Metropolitan Community Church.
Being lesbian mothers, we've had the book Heather Has Two Mommies in our home since before our son was born. We had him through artificial insemination, and we knew we were going to need an explanation of how he came about and where he came from. So the book has been a wonderful resource for us.
For kids, the books are simple. They show what it's like to grow up with gay or lesbian parents. But for adults, the books are symbols and pawns in a larger cultural war.
Many people seem to use the books Heather Has Two Mommies and Daddy's Roommates for their own political agendas.
I think many theologians and clergymen in the 20th century, they feel like they need a new crusade. And so gay men and lesbians are a very convenient target.
A, sodomy is against the law in the state of Texas. B, homosexuality is responsible for the greatest epidemic in human history. And C, homosexuality is an act that God has absolutely condemned.
If we were to take the Bible literally on everything it said, there'd be many one-eyed, one-armed, one-legged people walking around.
If I could talk to Dr. Jeffries, I would invite him to my community and have him spend an afternoon with some lesbian families. I would say to him, I want you to look this child in the eye, and I dare you to say to this child, there's something wrong with your family.
In the fight to keep the books on the shelf, there have been some unexpected benefits. When the story of the missing books hit the press, citizens began donating additional copies to the library.
We were suddenly flooded. Every day in the book drop, there were more and more and more. One gentleman ordered 5 copies of each from Amazon.com and had them delivered to us through the mail. We had started out with 2 copies, and then we had about 25 copies of each book before it was over with.
Well, the irony of it all is that when there's a big controversy about Heather Has Two Mommies in any community, book sales go up. There are probably lesbian moms in small towns all over the country that maybe would never have heard of the book, and now they can go and get it and read it to their children.
It's been a wonderful outreach for us and a wonderful opportunity for us to say, we're here and we are gay and lesbian and we are Christian and we are taking a stand for what we believe in.
Whether or not the books will stay in Wichita Falls Library is still uncertain. Dr. Jeffress plans to keep bringing the matter before the City Council.
These are the purloined books. I would prefer that the books be removed completely, but I also am a reasonable person and would accept a compromise, and that is restricting these books to adult checkout only.
And some City Council members seem inclined to agree.
All of us have a right to read what we want to read, and we also have a right to be protected from that which we want to be protected from. I think if they are placed in a place where if the parents want their children to read those books, fine. I have no problems with that. If parents don't want their children to read those books, that's fine too. That ought to be a solution.
Since there is no adult-only section, Daddy's Roommate and Heather Has Two Mommies would be the only restricted books in the entire Wichita Falls Library.
Anytime you're restricting access to information, you are censoring. It needs to be accessible without the intimidating factor of, I must ask for it at the desk. That is limiting the freedom of information to someone.
We have a right to be here. Some of us have children, and we have a right to have resources for those children. And we have the right to have them in our public library.
Since the publication of my novels, I have received letters from students concerned about the omission of gay and lesbian books from their school libraries. This censorship is due to pressure from conservative groups and some parents. Many schools have pulled books with information about homosexuality, from gay role models to HIV prevention, from their library shelves. This kind of censorship can further isolate gay and lesbian youth, who, according to studies, are 3 times more likely to commit suicide than straight teens. For a list of websites that offer information and resources for gay and lesbian youth, visit In the Life's website at www.inthelifetv.org. I'm Scott Heim, and you're watching In the Life.
We all got our start somewhere, and for me, the first stage role where people and critics took notice is when I played Anna in Paula Vogel's Baltimore Waltz here in New York. 2 other actors you may be familiar with are Kathy Kinney and Steve Buscemi. Both of them got their first break in a film that still stands out as an important work of gay cinema.
He said he only eats because you come over and make him. Is he trying to do himself in?
Nah, he'd eat. He only says that because he's afraid otherwise I'll dump him. I feel like a widower in Miami Beach.
Parting Glances marked the directorial debut of Bill Sherwood, who died of AIDS-related complications in 1990. Sherwood's first and only film was unique in that it presented AIDS as only one part in the larger picture of gay life in the 1980s. The film was certainly a breakthrough for gay cinema, but also for many in its cast.
Parting Glances was part of the beginning of the gay cinema.
It's a wonderful film.
I loved it.
I went crazy over it.
It was like a coming out party at the multiplex.
This was like the Stonewall of gay cinema.
Parting Glances centers around Michael and Robert, a New York couple who are about to temporarily separate when Robert is transferred overseas. Michael's ex-lover and best friend is Nick, who is HIV positive.
Oh, not that. Believe it or not, I like this stupid thing.
I let them plan it.
The plot takes place within a 24-hour period and begins as Robert prepares to leave Michael and New York for a 2-year work assignment in Africa.
But I want to leave. Look, I'm not going to last 2 years over there. I'll probably be back in 6 months. We just need a break, you know?
The centerpiece of the film, and its most memorable scene, is a going-away party for Robert, hosted by their close friend, Joan.
Let me just put on a light.
My character
is HIV, and at that point, I don't think there was any other films that were dealing with this. If you're trying to market a film, it's probably not the thing that people would flock to see.
There was a screening in New York, and we invited the audience to talk back afterwards. And I'll never forget, there was a woman who stood up and said, this film really disturbed me. And I'm like, okay, take a deep breath, talk to me. And she said, I have a brother who's homosexual. And I said, oh, my sister and you have something in common. And she said, what really upset me about the film is you made it look so normal. And I just said, thank you. And I said, you need to go home now and think about what you just said. Because, yeah, that's what it's about.
Writer-director Bill Sherwood's desire to make Parting Glances grew out of his frustration with the usual content and style of gay-themed films.
He had a way of capturing snippets of his life and writing them down and making you see so clearly what he had lived.
It's not your fault. It's nobody's fault.
No, it's not that. It's that sometimes when I'm over there, all I can think of is I'm so glad I don't have it.
Who wouldn't be? I mean, don't worry. A few years down the road, we have lung cancer, heart attacks to look forward to.
It's different when you're 50 or 60. Impending death doesn't freak you out as much.
I bet it does. I bet it's a fucking drag, even if you're 80.
I think if Bill had lived, that he would have turned out movie after movie, and that just like in his real life, there would have been this incredible mishmash of characters that were gay and gay straight, and women who acted like men and men who danced like little girls. He had a very vivid imagination.
My pants don't hang down in the back.
Straight guys' pants always hang down in the back.
Michael, do my pants hang down in the back? Yep.
I ended up playing Joan in Parting Glances because I worked with Bill Sherwood as a secretary at one of the local television stations.
Bill actually saw me on stage, which was good for me because when I auditioned for the film, my audition was so terrible that he told me that he wouldn't have hired me unless he had seen me on stage.
Steve was not at all Bill's original conception of Nick. Nick was supposed to be 6'5" and strong and with bushy black hair, and instead we found Steve Buscemi, who was totally wonderful in the part.
Right. But you didn't think this kid from Bensonhurst had so much stashed away, did you? Ha ha ha.
He was concerned that I wouldn't take it because I was working on the fire department and I wouldn't want anybody to know I was playing this part. And I think that when I first read the script, there was an element within me that just thought, can I really play this part? But I think any actor who would have turned down playing that part because the character is gay would be insane.
Richard was fresh out of acting school, and Bill cast him in this role. It was a difficult role because it was Bill. And he was very much a control freak.
We would shoot a scene and he'd say, now on this line, you should say it more this way, but then on this line, you could be a little bit, and he'd go through every line. And then we'd do the scene, and the scene would end, and he'd say, gee, Steve, can't you have any spontaneity?
He's mad? Good. Hey, you think I should go beat up Robert?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. You don't believe me, do you?
I'm gonna call a guard and I'm gonna book it right now.
You better call an ambulance, too.
Parting Glances opened doors for several of its cast members. For Kathy Kinney and Steve Buscemi, it became their ticket to Hollywood.
Listen, we had more fun in one weekend than the entire state of New Jersey's had since the signing of the Declaration of Independence.
That's not saying much.
Actor-director Steve Buscemi has gone on to star in such films as Reservoir Dogs, Fargo, and most recently, 28 Days. While Kathy Kinney has reached cult status as Mimi on the television hit The Drew Carey Show.
Go for it. Have a little adventure yourself.
When I came out here to Los Angeles, everyone was like, oh, we saw you in Parting Glances. What a wonderful movie. You were so wonderful. You know, let me see if I can help you.
The day the film was released, I got a call from an agent at ICM. So that's what really got me started in getting film work.
I do know I got a part on a series in Los Angeles because of Parting Glances. The director had seen Parting Glances and said that I was good, and wanted me in it.
You're leaving because you don't want to be around when Nick dies. You don't want to deal with me going through that.
I think Parting Glances holds up very well. I think it's kind of the grandfather of a lot of contemporary gay films.
Parting Glances is still important because it gives you permission to just live your life.
On this episode's In the News, 2 gatherings called for reinvigorating the fight against AIDS. In June, Newsweek magazine invited activists and journalists to their New York office for a discussion of AIDS at 20, the cover story for their June 11th issue. On the panel were Larry Kramer, the longtime AIDS activist and author, and Seth Berkley, founder of the International AIDS Vaccine Initiative, a nonprofit venture capital firm that invests in companies and academic labs with good ideas about vaccines for AIDS.
Here we sit in the 20th anniversary, not a good anniversary, a bad anniversary. No vaccine has been fully tested anywhere in the world to see if it works against HIV. Now, to me, that's shocking.
The figures are grotesque. Huge populations of this world are being decimated. Nobody will even use the word plague.
The truth is that this is the global plague, and if we are ever going to end the plague, we need a vaccine, and I still think that we're just barely scratching the surface of what could be done if the world really wanted to put it together.
The room was filled with people who repeatedly pointed out the challenges in the continuing crisis, both overseas and at home.
Hold on, folks. I don't want anyone in this room to forget that black folks and black people in this country are being killed by this epidemic, unlike any other communities that has been impacted.
Kramer, who co-founded the Gay Men's Health Crisis of New York, as well as the AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power, or ACT UP, offered a message to those committed to the fight against AIDS.
If I had to learn one lesson in activism, is that activism is an everyday thing. You get up in the morning and you are an activist and you cannot take off that coat.
One group of people intent on keeping their activist coats on are members of Gay Men of African Descent, or GMAD, who in June held their 2nd annual Northeast Regional Conference at Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island. HIV/AIDS was a primary focus.
The timing is particularly important this year because over the last few months there have been several studies that have shown that the infection rates among black men who have sex with men are high relative to other parts of the population. And so it's really clear that there's some additional work that we all have to do to change that.
The mission of GMAD is to empower gay men of African descent through education, social support, advocacy, and health and wellness promotion. But beyond its core group, the conference drew allies from all backgrounds.
It's not all black gay men who are here. There are people of other backgrounds, and that's really to acknowledge that we cannot do this on our own.
We need you. The community needs you.
To be counted among the allies was the Reverend Jesse Jackson.
Whether you are gay or lesbian, you're all members of the human family. Must all be afforded human dignity and equal protection under the law.
Reverend Jesse Jackson, who is here today, that was a significant appearance for us because I think it lets people know there's a connection to what we're doing and the civil rights tradition.
What is the American dream? It is a one big tent dream. Many languages, one message. Equal was unum of the many, we become one. The American dream.
He has made the commitment to work with us. He's been doing that all along, but I think this is a much more visible role.
Besides his consistent message of inclusion, the Reverend Jackson is raising the stakes in the black community by calling on leaders and ministers to publicly get tested for the HIV virus in the hopes that black men will follow their example. This year's regional conference drew over 300 participants, which is double the number of people that attended last year's gathering.
This is a skills building conference, so it's not just a conference where people are listening and then going home and going about their business. We're hoping that people are going to take the information they get here, go back to their communities, and use that information to mobilize support in their own communities.
I knew I never should have gotten involved with that woman. I knew I never should have gotten involved with that woman. Part of her power being she was a bad butch who made women unravel, come undone at the seams like Wonder Woman. Beneath her armor was desperate. I knew I never should have gotten involved with that woman, but somewhere inside she moved me to another country and I started speaking in languages I had never learned. One of the most effective tools in the fight against AIDS is having the right information, facts about prevention and treatment. If you want more information on AIDS in communities of color, contact the National Black Leadership Commission on AIDS or the National Minority AIDS Council. For these and other links to organizations working in the battle against AIDS, check out our website at inthelife.tv.org. This is Pamela Sneed for In the Life.
This is Bruce Valanche.
David Marshall Grant.
John Waters.
Katie Lang.
Jason Alexander.
We're Betty. And you're watching.
You're watching.
In the Life.
In the Life. In the Life.
Hello to everybody watching In the Life.
Still to come on In the Life.
In 1969, Judy Garland's life ended and the Stonewall riots began.
She did know that she had a big gay following, and she liked that.
A report on the Judy Connection and award-winning parents from a small town in Iowa. But first,
Over the years, In the Life has spanned the globe to bring us stories about gay men and lesbians who have accomplished extraordinary things in their lives. That has meant visiting gay foster parents in Iowa and reporting on a gay rights movement in China.
In July of 1997, the world watched as Hong Kong was returned to China after 150 years of British rule. Now, while the mainstream press pondered Hong Kong's economic and ideological future, the gay press questioned the future of a gay rights movement that was not even a decade old. But to understand the direction of this young movement, one must first understand the complex relationship between gay men and lesbians and the two strongest forces in China, communism and culture.
In the terms of gay people, is that so they do not come out, they do not even let their family know, so they would not shame them.
In a family, people don't talk much about people's feeling, love, or sex.
When I was 15, I understand myself. I'm gay, but very hard. I cannot to contact other gay men or lesbians in China because no any information.
You do everything for the family, even to sacrifice yourself. That's why gay people, they're tending to get married. They're under the family's pressure. Especially with this one-child population, it becomes more important to produce an heir for the family,
Jenny Lee, Gary Wu, and Wanyan Hai have devoted much of their work to reconciling being gay with the expectations of Chinese culture and communism, both of which strongly emphasize conformity. Though they have lived most of their lives in China, we caught up with them in the United States, where they were freer to speak their minds.
The Chinese culture does not encourage individualism. Most people are still very, very invisible, very, very closeted.
People don't have a good understanding of homosexuality. The most important issue is now is let people know what is homosexual, information, education.
Informing mainland Chinese about homosexuality is important to Gary Wu, who in 1995 was jailed for 13 days after attending meetings where gay issues were discussed.
They just said I cannot say any about gay and lesbian things in China.
But determined to gather information about gay life for himself and others, Wu produced the first ever documentary on gays in China called Comrades.
公里小路上每天都徘徊着许多北京和外地慕名而来的同性恋者。
Though the film shows evidence of increased meeting places for young gays, like a few bars and new Western-style dance clubs, there is still fear, as officials across China can arrest homosexuals under the vague charge of hooliganism, a catch-all term for undesirables.
People who has authority, they can blackmail you, they can arrest you. You know, some are even being persecuted. So they can do whatever they feel like to do.
Today, gay socializing in bars and parks seems to be more tolerated. But any effort to organize politically is forbidden. A gay movement in China is unthinkable at this time.
Chinese government is basically very paranoid about any possibility of social unrest. So anything they think could be getting out of control, they oppose.
One thing the government in Beijing has opposed since they took power in 1949 is the free flow of information. With this in mind about communist China, we wondered how gay people in Hong Kong were feeling about the recent takeover and the possibility that progress on their young gay rights movement might be stopped. It is only in the 1990s that Hong Kong began to seriously discuss gay topics. To date, only a handful of gay and lesbian organizations have formed, with most of them focusing on social activities, AIDS, and coming out issues.
Horizons,
Roddy Shaw is a spokesperson for Horizons, one of the most active of these organizations.
Hong Kong is such a hybrid kind of society because there is this influence from Western culture and also this long history of Chinese traditional values, which are so much different. Being gay is not easy for people in Hong Kong to come to terms with. So they have this identity problem. We need to develop our own way, our own means to build up our community and eventually let the world know that we are Tongji, we are gays, we are lesbians, we are bisexual people.
For gay men and lesbians in Hong Kong, the real challenge in letting the world know they're gay is less about government or communism and more about the much smaller world of the family.
Most of the parents will not understand their children having a different sexual orientation, which they have never, ever have been taught about or educated about.
For the Chinese people, they think that to make their parents unhappy or disappoint them is a big sin. This is the Chinese culture. So what we would like to do now is to help them to understand that homosexuality is not a crime, it's not a sin, they're not doing anything wrong. Just help them to build up their personality, their identity first, and then we will talk about the rights later.
In Asian communities, I think family is the most important thing for them. You have to be out to your family first before you can protest on the street because the family is always watching you.
For strong cultural reasons, gay and lesbian Chinese around the world all seem to face the same issues. The difference in Hong Kong, as opposed to mainland China, at least for now, is access to information.
The students can get information about gay and lesbians activities on my magazine, and the page is called Campus Rainbow.
And more secondary school students are using internet and emails, so it's very easy for them to get more access to these informations.
One thing's clear. Greater access to information and more open discussion of gay issues will lead to change in Hong Kong. And China will be watching.
The whole handover thing has a lot to do with the stability. So I don't think the government would do a lot of suppression of gay groups or anything like that.
If Hong Kong progresses, China will progress too. They will influence each other. It's an interwoven situation. So I think actually Hong Kong can be a good model for mainland people.
You can see that we are now launching some programs about equal rights for different people with different sexual orientation. And I can see the more general public have got knowledge about gay and lesbian people.
Will this hopeful outlook from a young gay student in Hong Kong ever transfer to Gary Wu about his own home city of Beijing?
My mom, they're very upset, and she asked me, son, if you haven't married, how do you see your life in China? I answered her, so I can find a very good friend, we can make family, we can live together, so I will take care of myself.
Family and governments aside, what Gary Wu and millions of other gay and lesbian people want in China, and indeed Hong Kong, can possibly be found in one small example, with Yvonne and her girlfriend, Jackie.
I'm a little bit different because I live with my girlfriend right now, with her parents and her sister. And because my girlfriend's parents accept her identities from very young, so that's no problem for us. And we live a quite happy life.
Some of the best of In the Life has highlighted the history of gay liberation. On its June 1999 episode, In the Life commemorated the 30th anniversary of the Stonewall Rebellion with a segment about the impact Judy Garland may have had on the gay and lesbian movement. The Stonewall Rebellion was named for a New York bar where a confrontation between patrons and police erupted on a summer night in 1969. Judy Garland's funeral had been held earlier that day. In the Life correspondent Jonathan Capehart looked at the connection between Stonewall and Garland's death, along with her enduring influence on lesbian and gay entertainers.
There's a smile on my face for the whole human race. Why, it's almost like being in love.
Judy Garland was the most important person to gay men in 1969. It's either an enormous coincidence that Stonewall happened on the day of her funeral, or there's a link.
And from the way that I feel.
I was at the riots. Judy had a part of it. She was in our minds, she was in our hearts, she was in our souls.
I would swear I was falling.
What a voice, what an instrument.
She was like a raw nerve. She gave you the whole cake.
Almost like being in love, almost.
She was everybody's legend. She was my mom.
This can't be love.
In Me and My Shadows, Lorna Luft writes a personal memoir about growing up as the daughter of one of this century's greatest entertainers, Judy Garland. And it was here, at the Stonewall Inn, where some believe Garland's legacy became forever linked with the Stonewall Rebellion.
The Wizard of Oz would come around once a year, and all the kids in the neighborhood would gather around the television set and watch this motion picture. And I think that was the first time that I fell in love with Judy Garland.
2 generations, almost now, coming up in the world, only know her as Dorothy. They really don't know her as the entertainer that she became. I think it's a real important part of our history to make sure that people know what she did for popular American music.
There were no flash powder explosions. There was no boa constrictor around her neck. There were no dancers. There were no cone-shaped bustiers. This was one woman standing in front of an orchestra, singing songs and being herself.
John Fricke, a leading Garland biographer, is the author of the upcoming 100 Years of Oz, set for publication this fall.
She was politically correct long before it was possible to be politically correct. In 1965, a San Francisco columnist at a big press conference at the top of the mark got her into a corner and said, "I understand you have a very large gay following, Miss Garland." And one of the other reporters heard this and wrote about it later, and he said that Judy just looked this reporter right in the eye and said, "I sing to people."
She did know that she had a big gay following, and she liked that.
I don't really buy into all the usual stereotypes that, oh, gay men love her because they identify with suffering. And if anything, I think gay men identify with her strength.
San Francisco, here I come.
If you went to any of her concerts, you would see families and children and gay people and straight people, and you would see this big mixture. I think it's just that the gay audience has made sure to protect her image and protect her memory.
Chicago, Chicago, free and easy town, brassy, crazy town, Chicago.
I get that new box set of hers that has all this great stuff on it that you've never heard before, which is terrific.
Judy, a recently released 4-CD, video, and book collection, spans over 40 years of Garland's musical career. Judy includes rare audio and video highlights from the short-lived CBS TV series, The Judy Garland Show.
Life is peachy, Chicago.
What we wanted to do was an overview of her entire career. So we started when she was, I think, 5, and we ended a few months before her death.
Judy Garland, episode 25, aired, take 1.
Gets rougher, it's lonelier and tougher.
The TV series is an extraordinary body of work because it's the only major body of work we have of Judy Garland being Judy Garland, not playing a role.
She loved the fact that they had a yellow brick road to her dressing room over at CBS, and they really did go all out. They just didn't quite know what to do when it was on the air.
Of one man, woman, looking for the man that goes.
I watched it when I was a kid. Fought with family because Bonanza was on at the same time. They wanted to watch Bonanza. I wanted to watch Judy Garland.
The man that goes.
On June 22, 1969, Judy Garland died from an accidental drug overdose in London at the age of 47.
Friday, June 27th, 1969, started for most people in the New York City gay community by being at Judy Garland's funeral.
22,000 people filed past her casket, and then many of them came right here. The discussion at the Stonewall Inn that night was not about gay rights in America. It was about who among them had been to Judy's funeral.
And by the end of middle part of 1969, we all had enough. The situation with the police was terrible. They would go into a bar and we'd have to sit down, the lights would go up, they would check ID, take some of us out and arrest us. And we were tired of living that way.
The fact that that day, the gay community lost its icon, Judy Garland. It was a situation where, what more can we lose? We had no rights. Now we lose our icon, one of the few things the gay community had then. And it was just too much.
Background action!
There was such a feeling in the crowd of anger towards the police. It was at that moment I knew something was bad was going to happen, and indeed, That's when it began. The one interesting thing which intrigued me is people were chanting Judy's name. They were saying, St. Judy, St. Judy, St. Judy, pray for us.
If Judy Garland's funeral was not that day, the Stonewall Rebellion would not have happened that night. No doubt it would have happened sooner or later, but let's face it, it didn't happen in 200 years. I don't mean at the Stonewall Club, but gay people never revolted prior to that. Why that night? The connection was Judy Garland. There's no question about it.
In the 30 years since her death, Judy Garland continues to inspire and influence a new generation of gay and lesbian artists.
The character of Lip Sync is sort of meant to be every diva, and you might see a gesture that Judy would have done, and what I call Judy hand jive, because she had a very idiosyncratic and individual way of moving her arms and her hands.
Half of my audience, I'm surprised, I get the kids from the East Village, you know, with the different color hair, and they can relate to her because she's not dated. And because of her brutal honesty, it transcends time.
Mr. Jimmy James, recreating live, Miss Judy Garland.
Forget your troubles, come on, get happy.
The cool thing about Judy is that I can, like, just suddenly break into little Judy and just become that personality and that spark that she had.
Listen, I'm gonna meet some friends in a few minutes out front. We're gonna get something to eat, and then we're gonna go to a piano bar.
To this day, Garland's grip on the gay community is so strong that when one gay man meets another, the code is...
Listen, you'll fit right in. They're all friends of Dorothy. You know, friends of Dorothy, Judy, the Wizard of Oz.
To me, I think she's one of the true great performers that have ever been around. There are a couple people that have had that sort of impact on my career. As a performer, I get that from her.
Come on, get happy. Chase your cares away. Shout hallelujah. Come on, get happy. Get ready for the judgment day.
Someone that just goes out on stage and does it, whatever there is to do, gives it 150%. You name me somebody who does what Judy Garland does. I can't. That's why she's a legend. That's why she'll be a legend forever.
On the other side, forget your troubles. Come on, get happy. You better chase all your cares away. Shout hallelujah. Come on.
I don't know why my mom had such a huge gay following. I'm pleased that she did. They have kept her memory alive.
For the judgment day.
If one accomplished individual has been an important topic for In the Life, then a pair is even better. Perhaps one of the most powerful stories In the Life has brought us is about two gay men in a small town in Iowa.
In 1996, two Iowa men were given an award that was rather uncommon for a gay couple. Gare Bridges and Ron Travis were named Foster Parents of the Year in that state, and it was the first time a gay couple were given such an honor. For our final segment, we take you to America's heartland, Eldora, Iowa, to meet these incredible parents and a few of their kids. In the small town of Eldora, Iowa, Ron Travis and Gare Bridges have opened their home to 18 foster children over the last 10 years.
Ron and I have been together for 23 years. 10 years ago, I thought it'd be kind of nice if we had a family, so I contacted the Department of Human Services, which is out of the state of Iowa, and they thought, instead of adopting, that maybe we should become foster parents first, and then from there see how we did with the kids and adopt.
He wanted the family initially. And at that time, they didn't know we were a couple.
And after he started going down the road for foster care, going to sign up for the training, that's when they said, well, all the adults in the house have to be involved. And so that's how I got involved.
Never intended on adopting a baby. Always was the thought, you know, maybe we can make a difference in somebody's life, maybe change it around for them. Gary was our first foster kid. He came to us when he was 15. Came from a disrupted family. Juvenile court system was in control of him. And they called us at 5 o'clock, and at 6 o'clock we had a kid. Very scared kid.
I didn't even know I was gonna be gone until that day. I was told, you're gonna get your stuff together, you're going to a foster home. So just like that day I was gone. So I had no idea. As I said, my world was just turned right upside down. I just didn't know what to think. And then I heard about their lifestyle, and then I was kind of afraid. And you know, the stereotype, the images were coming to my mind and stuff. And until I finally met them after a week, it's great. They were there for me. I could trust them, and I consider them my dads. You know, my two dads.
After Gary, being foster parents became a way of life.
All the kids that are in our home understand that we're a gay family. Some of them we have not told immediately. We wanted them to get used to us first, know that we are good people, and then there's nothing wrong with, you know, with being here. Some we've had to tell right away just because of the school situation, depending on when they come into school. Obviously, that the kids in school know that we're gay, and we didn't want it to be brought out to them at school.
I met Ron and Gary because I was a runaway from home, and my mom just couldn't deal with it anymore. So I got put in involuntary foster care here.
Like many kids who end up in foster care, Andre would run away when his home situation became intolerable.
I spent nights underneath viaducts in my hometown and over friends' houses, underneath friends' porches, and just people I didn't even know in their garage. Living here with Ron and Gary, it was a very safe environment. I didn't have to go through any abuse. Unlike living with my mom, I had to go through mental and physical abuse, and just couldn't deal with it anymore. And that's what caused me to go on Ron.
We keep referring back to consistency in our home. These kids come from backgrounds where it doesn't matter how late they're out at night. Their meals are very haphazard, usually sitting in front of a TV, not full meals. And where our consistency is, we sit down every night at the dining room table, and for the most part, for most of the kids here, that's a big change for them, you know, to actually sit down at the table and you pass the food around and you wait till everybody is served and then you eat. If the phone rings during the meal, we don't answer it. We don't have the TV on. There's no interruptions.
4 years ago, I was in a youth shelter in Fort Dodge, and I ended up here because my home environment was not acceptable. Ron and Gary were more like friends because they treated me as a peer instead of as a child and allowed me to mature, like catch up to where I was.
While being foster parents means everything in the world to Ron and Gare, they also knew that someday they wanted to adopt a child. After an almost successful attempt of adopting a 2-year-old named George, the Department of Human Services one day called them with the right child, named Eddie.
DHS kind of waited until they found a child that they knew that all rights had been terminated, all the court proceedings had been taken care of, and they called us up and said, hey, we've got a little boy here, would you guys be interested? And so we went to meet him and fell in love with him right away and brought him home, and 6 months later we adopted him. He came to us at 2 and he was not speaking at that time. He was still on the bottle and was still in diapers.
Not on solid foods. So that was a new experience.
Given Ron and Gare's dedication as foster parents, many in Eldora were not surprised when they won Iowa Foster and Adoptive Parents of the Year Award in 1996. The surprise was who made the nomination.
I nominated Ron and Gare for Foster Family of the Year for the fact that they're the first people that's ever respected me, and they actually took care of me instead of just making me do things of my own. And I appreciated it, and I thought they deserved it. And so happens after I moved out and everything, they got elected for it.
This was the first time the award was given where the nomination came from a foster child and not from a foster parent or a social worker. So it really made the award really special for us.
When I was honored with a Tony Award in 1995 and thanked my partner, Mary, it seemed a natural thing for me to do. It was noticed because it happened on national TV. I learned not to underestimate the impact of television. For In the Life, I'm Cherry Jones.
Road gets rougher, it's lonelier and tougher. With hope you burn up. Tomorrow he might turn up. There's just no let up. The livelong night. Looking for the man that goes away.
In the Life is funded in part by the H. Van Ameringen Foundation. Additional support provided by Mel Heifetz, Jonathan B. Sheffer and Christopher Barley, the Gill Foundation, the Colin Higgins Foundation, the Mitchell Gold Company, in the hopes of eliminating all types of fear and prejudice, and the annual support of In the Life members like you.